Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Teasha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have an elite economic development executive with nearly 3 decades of proven impact across the public and private sectors. His name is Jeremy. He's currently the Director of Economic Development for the City of Griffin, Georgia. His career bridges municipal leadership, Chamber of Commerce operations, and private sector logistics, which gives him this very rare view of how regional economies actually work. So, Jeremy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. We'd love for you to give us your own in-depth about yourself and tell us about the City of Griffin.
All right. Well, good morning, Teasha. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here and to share. I've been in economic development here for about 3 decades now, and I've had the opportunity to work in the municipalities, work for Chamber of Commerce's, also for regional economic development organizations. And I also have to take some time to operate my own company as a trucking company. And we do really well there. But it gave me a rare opportunity to see from the owning your own business perspective of how business perceive how government operates. So that was a good way, and it really helped me out for this job here when I came back into economic development, working for the City of Griffin, how to operate an organization from the perspective of what business would look at.
Wonderful. Well, listen, I'm really appreciative. What we've been doing, we've been talking to economic development specialists. The idea is to really start to bridge the gap between the true point of economic development is economic growth, right? We want to see jobs being created. Those happen by businesses. So I love digging into the strategy and decision-making parts of that. So when you were in Danville, so your run really set the bar. 16 corporations, 9 expansions, 2,500 jobs, 310 million in capital. That's really not incremental growth. That's a transformation. So now you're applying that same instinct at Griffin. As deals cross your desk today, how are you separating the prospects that will create lasting opportunity for Griffin from the headline announcements that look great at the ribbon cutting, but leave the city exposed if the company downsizes or relocates? What tells you right now which projects might actually stick?
Well, that's a very good question. I have a tendency to work in these textile type communities where they've been traditionally textile. And then, of course, they lost all their jobs the last 20 years. In the textile industry as it's moved offshore, and they're trying to redefine who they are as a community. And so I learned quite a bit about that. And so when I was in Danville, of course, you have the new companies come in, but I think the most important thing is the legacy you can leave, things that you set in place that may not occur when you're there, but afterwards, it'll have more of a positive effect for the whole community. For instance, there's a great federal program called the New Market Tax Credit Program. And we had Danville take advantage of that. We set up a community development entity so that we can receive the new market tax credits. So that's really important to do. And they were able to get several large downtown projects since we set that up. Also, with the city, the county working in Danville and Pittsylvania County, they were able to put together 3,500 acres of land. And that 3,500 acres of land has now enabled them to get these larger industries to come in to replace the jobs that they've lost. And then another thing is that we bought some of the Dan River properties when I was in Danville. We had the ownership and we had control of what we could do with that property. We took a lot of heat for that. Mm-hmm. What happened is they approved having gambling in Southern Virginia. Well, an $800 million casino located on that property that we bought years before. So that's what you're doing is really, you're not only trying to have the splashy ribbon cuttings, is you're trying to set your community up for the future for many decades after that. And that's what we're trying to do. When I look here at Griffin, is we don't want just to have a bunch of announcements. We want to set this up for the future. How can we have paths to increase their capacity and bring projects in over the long term?
Really good. And definitely the point. So on that note, you've closed real estate at a staggering scale, 3,500 plus acre mega site, the 900,000 square foot facility for the Polish manufacturer, 23 acre supplier parcels. So you know the zoning, environmental, infrastructure, and financing complexity cold, right? As you market Griffin's commercial inventory at this moment, what's the framework that tells you that a site's economics actually work and the projects fit for the city strategy? And how do you keep yourself or even your stakeholders from getting seduced by deal size when the real question is whether it's a good fit for Griffin?
That's another good question. Griffin, we happen to be within I call the 50-mile sphere of Atlanta. Anything within 50 miles of Atlanta is starting to really grow because Atlanta's going gangbusters. But we're seeing a lot of pressure on real estate being sold. We're entering into the period where data centers seem to be very prevalent. And that's a question all the communities are having to go through right now. Should we have them in? And if so, how many? But what we're trying to concentrate on in here for the Griffin is I do a lot of redevelopment, especially around the downtown area. And we buy key property that we want to redevelop. And so we've been accumulating quietly some property that has been neglected with the thoughts of going over to an RFQ to get qualified developers to come in here and give us their vision of what would be best for that site. In terms of development here in the city of Griffin is to bring it up several notches and reduce the amount of vacant buildings that we have, which has gone dramatically with our reduction in the number of buildings that are vacant.
That's awesome. And sticking with this being close to Atlanta, one of the things that's interesting to me is that Griffin is really boxed in geographically. So you've got the bigger Atlanta metro players who might have deeper pockets who sit above you. You got the smaller towns that are willing to give away the farm around you. So what's Griffin's actual edge today? Are you competing on incentives? Like you mentioned, is it on I-75 location? Is it on infrastructure or on quality of life? How is that positioning shaping which industries you're going after right now and which ones that you might say, no, thank you?
Well, the important thing about the Atlanta area, you got a lot of suburbs, among suburbs with exurbs. Griffin is its own distinct community, and that's the attraction here. We have our own brand. We're our own community. We know there's going to be growth here, but we don't want to be overrun. Griffin wants to keep its distinctness. So not every company that comes in is a good fit here. As I mentioned, the data centers, there's a lot of concern about the resources they use. There's also benefits to the tax dollars. So I don't think anyone, the community is here saying absolutely not, but they're saying, okay, if we have to have that, how can we, quote unquote, control to a sense that we're not being overrun with it? And I think that's what all of our development is that, especially when we do a lot of our downtown projects, is that we would like to see good quality development here, but we don't want to be another large city.
Yeah, it's super important to find that identity and then build that for the community. And I like that you're saying your focus there is at the community level. So it's all about building what will work for the people of Griffin. So when you were at the Clayton County Chamber, right, you inherited an organization in deficit and you flipped it to profitability while growing the membership 20% and revenue about 52%. That's not cost cutting, right? That's value redesign. What from that turnaround experience are you carrying into Griffin today? When you look at how the city captures and monetizes its own assets, where do you see a model that's maybe quietly broken, but then right for the same kind of redesign?
Clayton County we had to take it down to the studs, basically. It was problematic. They're basically taking money. I didn't put my own money in to make payroll there a couple times. But anytime I'm an operations type guy. When you get in, you look at, all right, how's this operating? What needs to be fixed? What is okay? Keep going. But I think what I learned from Clayton County is about politics. Even if you're making necessary changes in the political world, people don't like change too much or too quickly.
Mm-hmm. Too fast.
And that 10% rule, 10% change per year is probably the max that we all can handle, including myself. And then you have a completely different thing after 10 years, but it's the gradual change that people are most receptive to. And that's what when I came here to Griffin, my philosophy is we're not going to do things too fast to make people uncomfortable. And it's more important that we do gradually make improvements here in the community.
Yeah, so everything is constant forward motion versus all at once. I completely understand. So you've made really intergovernmental alignment. You made that look pretty easy. But in the real world, agencies have different kind of priorities, right? They have different budgets. They have different approval clocks. In the Atlanta metro and along the I-75 corridor, you're working across city, county, regional, and state lines, and you're doing that constantly. Where are the friction points that end up slowing things down at all? Like when one jurisdiction's constraint threatens a project that the other one wants, how do you structure those conversations to really seek and find alignment without anyone feeling like they lost?
When I was in Danville in Pennsylvania County, what made things finally work is when they realized that the city and the county had to work together and did the common goal. And I think the best thing they ever did was when they put 3,500 acres together, a mega park, and they worked together to put all that land together. And then they went out over the years and recruited companies to go in there. So that's the model we need to follow. I think you find that in a lot of cities and counties. Since there's so many in Georgia, there's 157 counties and multiple cities and all that, is that trying to get the city and the county to at least on the surface work together. The more competition we have, it just the investors see that when they come in here, and they're more hesitant to want to invest if they see there's that friction there. So the best thing we can is at least on a superficial level is make sure that it looks like we're working together.
Yeah, on purpose. So you want to look like you're working together so that draws other folks in. No one wants to be in a situation that feels like it's going to be confrontational. I totally get it. So in your work, for example, with the chambers, there's one set of work, and now you're inside the municipal government, and the cultures are different, and they're different stakeholder ecosystems. Can you tell me what's maybe the single most valuable lesson that the chamber world taught you that shaped how you do economic development in government? And then if you flip that around, what does government understand that would have made you a sharper chamber executive years earlier?
That's a good question too. I'm glad I'm back in the municipal work. I enjoy that much more than Chamber of Commerce. And when you work in Chamber of Commerce, is you're basically singing for your supper every day. You don't know which businesses are going to keep their membership every year. So you're not recruiting businesses, but you're also worried about the operation of, are you going to have enough to pay your employees? So those sponsorships can go away every year, and business can say, "Oh, I don't want to be a part of the chamber anymore." So that's the learning thing is I didn't realize before the chamber world that you got to worry about that aspect of it, because as you see, the world is changing, and there's a lot of chambers that are struggling financially now because there's other ways to connect business to business. From the municipal side, I think it's very important for municipalities to work together with these chambers. As there's always been a kind of a gap between the two, and I think they both can, when we work together, learn from each other, that good things can happen.
So two things I just heard. One is there's got to be, so if on the chamber side, value to the business is really important. What's the value to the business that keeps them involved and coming back? And then on the municipal side, they should also care, but it's more about where can they fill gaps that support? How do you bridge between the two of them to make sure that the entire journey of what the business might need is actually accommodated? And that might require both. That's what I heard there, or how I look and interpret it.
No, that's exactly what it is. You can get it on the head.
So let's do my favorite part of the podcast now. We're going to explore your decision-making style through a persona assessment. Okay, so I'm going to ask you 4 different questions that represent different decision-making approaches. And after each one, you're going to tell me how much the way that I'm asking the question, how much it resonates with how you approach decisions, okay? And you'll have a scale of 0 to 100% for each one, but you only get 100% across all 4. Yeah, so you have to keep your percentage in mind, okay?
Gotcha.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, the first one is called the feeler. It's a values-driven leader. So this persona prioritizes alignment with core values and mission, often weighing the human impact and cultural fit of decisions alongside business metrics. So when I'm weighing a major recruitment opportunity or a decision to put municipal resources behind a development project, I ask myself, beyond the jobs and the capital, what does this mean for the people already living in Griffin? I need to feel confident that those opportunities create real pathways for existing residents with wages and working conditions that are genuinely sustainable, not just a number for the press release. If a project would throw off strong tax revenue, but accelerate gentrification and price out longtime residents or create jobs the local workforce can't access without retraining, I have to ask whether I'm strengthening community cohesion and broad based opportunity or just optimizing economic metrics while leaving my own neighbors behind. So, Jeremy, on a scale of 0 to 100%, how much does approaching decisions by asking yourself that kind of value based question resonate with you?
That is very, very important. And too bad I don't get to look at a floor room up front, but I think it's important. I'd say I'd put 30% on that. 30.
Okay,
Yeah.
30%.
I have to think through that every day. That's part of the whole process here. We got a redevelopment project that we're working on here in Griffin. Some buildings that we're looking at to redeveloping require us to think in those terms of community and how it would affect every aspect of it. So to me, it hits the core of economic development.
Awesome. Okay, here's the next one. It's called the planner. It's a strategic visionary. This persona focuses on long term implications and future proofing decisions, always thinking several moves ahead and considering multiple scenarios. So, when I'm deciding which industries to target, where to invest infrastructure, or which development opportunities to pursue, I ask myself, what are the second and third order effects across multiple future scenarios? If I recruit a major manufacturer but don't invest at the same time in workforce, housing, and transportation, what happens when talent becomes the binding constraint? If I lean entirely on manufacturing, what happens when automation or disruption hits that base? If I position Griffin purely as an I-75 logistics hub, am I building compounding advantage or locking us into a commodity race to the bottom with every other corridor in town? I need to know that today's decisions are creating resilience and optionality for Griffin's future, not just harvesting one-time deals. So, Jeremy, how much does that forward-thinking scenario planning approach really resonate with how you decide?
My education is in regional planning. That's where I got my master's degree. So that's every day for me is that I'm not thinking about only today, but how things are going to affect from the future. And as I said before here, that we're trying to make positive changes that we may not necessarily feel today, but we'll feel positively down the road. And that's so important. I'm going to put that as 30% too. I know I went over half on my first two, but those two are
That's
crucial.
okay. There we go. It's all up to how you identify. So that's great. Here's the next one. It's called the counter. It's the challenger of assumptions. So this persona naturally questions conventional wisdom and looks for contrarian opportunities, often finding success by zigging when others zag. So when I look at how most cities chase economic development, racing to offer the lowest taxes and the most aggressive incentives, I ask myself, is that playbook actually right? Or is everyone just subsidizing employers with public money that could go to workforce infrastructure and quality of life? I keep questioning whether competing on cost is a trap. What if Griffin's real edge isn't being the cheapest, but being the gateway to Atlanta with superior logistics access and a distinctive identity that the pure play race to the bottom cities can't replicate? Given my time running chambers and now inside government, which assumptions about how cities compete should I be challenging to build something more sustainable and more defensible? So, Jeremy, how much is that assumption challenging contrarian style work for you?
I put it 20.
20.
I'm saying that the city of Griffin, we do not offer a lot of incentives. We have a tax abatement program we used once, and that was for a mixed-use residential type project of a redevelopment of an old mill. And we're creating a new incentive program called the Flex Grant, but that's going to be also used for redevelopment projects. But if somebody comes in here and wants to put a 30 or 100 jobs for a plastics company, we're not necessarily going to give them an incentive. Being in the Atlanta area, we don't have to necessarily do that. We're trying to incentivize buildings that have been vacant for couple of decades. So that's more of our interest over here.
All right, here's the last one. It's
Uh,
called the data driver. It's an evidence-based decision maker. So this persona relies heavily on metrics, analytics, and concrete evidence to validate decisions, preferring proof over intuition. So given how results driven I am, I ask myself, what concrete evidence do I have before I commit to a major decision? What data tells me a company will actually follow through, that the promised jobs will materialize, that the capital investment numbers are real and not inflated? I want to track retention by industry, wage levels by sector, and the longitudinal metrics that reveal which recruitment categories created durable benefit versus one off wins. And I want the financial models and the feasibility analysis that tell me whether the city is making an investment or subsidizing something that never justifies itself. But I also ask myself, what matters here that resists clean measurement? How do I read whether a company is genuinely committed to the community or treating Griffin as a transactional? Some of my most important advantages, my reputation with site selectors, my network across the Southeast, the trust I've built with intergovernmental partners, can't be put on a spreadsheet. And yet they often decide the deal. So, how do I stay rigorous on the hard numbers while giving real weight to the signals that don't quantify?
uh,
All right, Jeremy.
but 20 on that, but that all four of these are very important. They're key to everything we do. And we do a lot of retail recruitment here. And so in that sense, data is very important. There's certain types of restaurants here, grocery stores that people want. And of course, all that is data driven by household income and by the number of rooftops we got. So the more we increase that, our ability to get that increases. But I've learned over my career how important it is not to just jump on any bandwagon and to be very careful about how you offer incentives. And I think when we work with our downtown development authority and our other downtown development partners, that we try to emphasize that we're not just handing out money to everybody. That doesn't do anybody any good. There's a lot of startups that need help, but there again, it was not the track record. And if you lose the money, then the community's out of that. And so we try to really hone in. And I'll say, I spend a lot of time with these clients. And to me, it's not just the business, but how those people are when in between the lines. So how they treat others, what their vision is. Are they in this for the long haul? So, and I think most of the people that we've dealt with that we brought here to Griffin in the last 2 years are good quality people. And so that makes me really excited about where Griffin is going to be going.
Hey, so as we wrap up here, you've been someone who you've generated thousands of jobs, hundreds of millions in capital investment across the Southeast. If you could give one piece of advice to other economic development leaders who might be trying to generate genuine, sustainable regional growth in this very competitive environment, what would it be?
I think it's really important that you pick a community that has some vision as you, that has good people in it, especially at the level of who your bosses are, who the city commission is, county commission. That is very important. You can do everything you can as an icon developer, but if you don't have all those people around you, it doesn't do any good. And if you have some red flags when you're interviewing, don't go. It's more important to be around good people all the way around.
Love it. And would you tell everybody where they can learn more about you and more about the city of Griffin?
All right. You can look up at the cityofgriffin.com. That is our website for the whole city. We do have a buildings and sites part on the economic development. We finally got our own buildings and site part of it, which I think is very important. You can see me on LinkedIn. Look to connect with you on there and how we could partner in the future.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to rate it, subscribe to it, share it with your network. Let's keep the conversation going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.